We got one more college football game this season before the bowl games begin. Army and Navy will meet again this season, as they do every year, in either Philly, New York, or Baltimore. This year it is in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field this Saturday at 3 o'clock on CBS. I'm going to preview that, talk a little bit about the uniforms, as both these teams in the past couple years have spiced it up a little bit and made the uniforms better than just the traditional ones that they wear year in and year out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those. I'm going to recap last week, conference championship weekend, and preview the Army-Navy game. As I said, the final college football playoff rankings were released on Sunday. We now know who the final four teams are, who is going to be playing each other in the semifinal games in the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl, respectively, on January 1st, New Year's Day, 2018. Both games will be on ESPN and streaming live on the ESPN app. So if you don't have cable and you stream your shows, it'll be on those to watch. But I'll talk about the college football playoff rankings, but mainly what this episode of Across the Goal Line is going to be about is just a little more of an update on the coaching carousel that's going on at the moment. Give a little bit of an update as a couple more schools have announced their head coaches, and we have another opening now. So I'll get to those here in a minute as well. And then the Heisman Trophy ceremony is going to be on Saturday night in New York City. As on Monday, they announced the three finalists. There are three finalists for the 2017 Heisman Trophy, so I'll get to those here in a minute. This week I'm not going to preview bowl games. That'll be next week, so stay tuned for that. I'm gonna preview all the bowl games next week. Unlike last year, we had split it up week by week, whatever games were in the next week from when we recorded. I'm going to do a little bit different this year. I'm going to do them all at once, and then if I change my mind, before the games start, go check Twitter, possibly Facebook, more than likely just Twitter. As you can follow Across the Goal Line on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you haven't done so already, and then subscribe here on YouTube. So that's what this episode is going to be about. So I'll start off with recapping last week. 6-3 last week. Only losses would have been, I believe, the Stanford game, the TCU game, and the Georgia-Auburn game. All the other ones I got right. So, I had picked Stanford over USC, I'd picked TCU over Oklahoma, and I'd picked Auburn over Georgia. Those three games went the other way, and USC is now the Pac-12 champ. Oklahoma is now the Big 12 champ, and Georgia is the SEC champion. So I got all those other games right. 6-3, 136 and 77 on the year. USC beat Stanford last Friday night. I did catch the tail end of that once I got home from NXT Live. By the way, those videos of entrances and the full match between NXT champion Andrade Cien Almas, Adam Cole, baby, and Roderick Strong are here on YouTube. Full match of that is the video is right before this video, so go check it out. It has a lot of views at the moment. It was about a 20-minute match. Has entrances, and then all the other entrances from the superstars that were there that wrestled are here on Across the Goal Line's YouTube page as well. So go check those out. Toledo then USC defeated Stanford 31-28. I did catch a tail end of that. Toledo defeated Akron 45-28 on Saturday to win the MAC. Central Florida and Memphis played in the best game last week, maybe one of the best games all year, back and forth. It was a shootout down in Orlando. Central Florida sent Scott Frost out in style as the American Athletic Conference champions with a win over Memphis for the second time this year, 62-55 in double overtime. Florida Atlantic defeated North Texas 41-17. Lane Kiffin's done one hell of a job down in Boca Raton with the Owls this year. His name has come up for jobs. I don't know if he's going to be leaving or staying. Tennessee's still open, as I said. Arkansas is still open, and now Oregon. I'll get to that here in a minute. If you know who Oregon's coach was, and you know the news, by now, Willie Taggart left Oregon to go somewhere else. I'll get to that here in a minute. Oklahoma defeated TCU 41-17. Georgia defeated Auburn 28-7. That game was a game up until late in the third quarter, early fourth, and then Georgia just the dogs rolled all over the Tigers. Boise State defeated Fresno State to win the Mountain West 17-14. Got revenge from the week before, as these two teams have played in back-to-back weeks. Clemson then blew out Miami 38-3 to win the ACC. And then Ohio State knocked off undefeated fourth-ranked Wisconsin 27-21 to win the Big Ten. Best game, as I said, Memphis, Central Florida. Clemson impressed, Auburn disappointed. And then games this weekend, only one, as I said. Army will be playing Navy. As I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the uniforms. As I said, both these teams have spiced up the uniforms in the past couple years. Navy's jerseys this year are going to be, they were inspired, I should say, by the Blue Angels. So they'll be wearing all blue, and their helmets have the Blue Angels on the side of them, so I thought that was pretty cool. I did, growing up, did get the chance to see the Blue Angels live in person down in Maryland when I was growing up, as I said. And then Army came out the other day, actually on Monday, in their uniforms for this year's game, the 2017 Army-Navy game, will be telling the story of the soldiers in the 10th Mountain Division after they were officially born into the military during the winter warfare in World War II. So they'll be all white uniforms, got a little brown in them, and Navy is going to be all blue, inspired by the Blue Angels. So be sure to keep an eye out for the Army-Navy game. It's on CBS at 3 o'clock on Saturday. I know I'll be watching. I watch this game every year, just because the players that are playing in this game, most of them, if not all of them, will be going, if they haven't already, serve in the military and be active duty members. And so this game's it's just one of those games you got to watch, even if you don't like football. So I know I'll be watching. I always pick Navy to win this game, always, every year. I've had family members in both sides in the military, in the Army and the Navy, but for some reason I always pick Navy. Is it because Navy always wins this game? I don't know. I just always pick Navy. But Army's the better team going into this matchup this year. Army's sitting at 8-3, Navy's at 6-5. Army's having their best year in God knows how long. But I'm gonna stick to my gut, and I'm gonna still pick Navy to defeat Army on Saturday on CBS. And I just want to say thanks to all military members, whatever branch you're in. Thank you for your service. You guys don't get enough credit year in and year out, or every day of the year. So where was I going next? I wanted to talk a little bit about the coaching carousel, give another update on that. I'll start with Scott Frost, then work my way down the list. Jimbo Fisher left Florida State, so the Florida State job opened up. That's why I said the Oregon job's now open because Willie Taggart left Oregon to go to Florida State. Herm Edwards is getting back into coaching, and Central Florida found their replacement for Scott Frost. They hired Josh Heupel, former now Missouri offensive coordinator. He did hire Randy Shannon to be his defensive coordinator. Formerly the defensive coordinator at Florida under Jim McElwain, and now McElwain's obviously out. Mullins there now is the head coach, and so Shannon was looking for a job. Good hire, I think, by Josh Heupel. Randy Shannon knows the state of Florida. Unlike Heupel, Shannon was the head coach for Miami there for a number of years, and then most recently as the defense coordinator at Florida. And he's a great recruiter. And I know I said a couple weeks ago he's a washed-up coach. Well, what I meant by that, he's a better assistant coach than he is head coach, in my opinion, because he really didn't do too well down in Miami with the Hurricanes. But Josh Heupel's now the next head coach at Central Florida. Scott Frost, officially now the head coach at Nebraska, signed the contract before the Memphis game, and then was asked, well, the news broke during the game because it was in overtime, that he had officially agreed to become the next head coach in Nebraska. Was asked by Todd McShay, during his post-game press conference on the field if he accepted the job. He didn't say anything. He said he just wanted to celebrate with his team. Later that night, while they celebrated, Central Florida put out the tweet that, they sent him out with a win and good luck back home, coach. So if really, that Central Florida broke the news and finished it. And then later that night, he was on a plane going to Lincoln, and they had his press conference around lunchtime on Sunday. So Scott Frost is going back home, officially now the next head football coach in Nebraska. We'll be bringing 7 assistants from Central Florida to Lincoln with him. And the cool thing I think about this hire is Nebraska is letting Frost coach Central Florida in their bowl game, as they will be playing Auburn in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Normally when coaches take another job, the team that they had previously coached, promotes an assistant to be the interim. But Scott Frost is staying with his team up until the bowl game. He's going to be recruiting from now until then, but he's going to be recruiting the players to Nebraska, obviously not to Central Florida. Both teams now have head coaches. As I said, Scott Frost at Nebraska and Josh Heupel is at Central Florida. Texas A&M, they fired Kevin Sumlin. A lot of rumors were swirling that Jimbo Fisher was going to leave Tallahassee. I don't know, why he would, but he did. Now in the richest contract in college football history. It was a 10-year, $75 million deal, so $7.5 million annually. Not the highest paid coach every year, but overall, throughout the 10 years, he's currently the highest paid college football coach in history, as all this money is guaranteed. So whether they fire him or not after 5 or 6 years, he's still going to get paid the rest of the amount of money for the other 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know why he took the job. And I did say last week, I don't know why he would, other than the money talks. I know that was the Bobby Bowden thing that I talked about still hovering over him. I don't know, maybe. But the thing with Jimbo, he was in 8 seasons at Florida State. He was 83-23. He won 3 ACC titles, 5-2 in bowl games, and he won him a national championship in 2013, and the last year the BCS. And then he took them to the college football playoff the year after that. They did lose to the runner-up Oregon, as Oregon lost to Ohio State in the first ever college football playoff down in Dallas. But I don't see it as it's a good hire by A&M. I'll give them that. I'll give them credit for that. But I don't know. It's just I don't know if it's a good fit or what. He he must like the SEC better than the ACC because he's coached in that conference longer than he has the ACC, and maybe he just wanted a fresh start. You know, I know all these coaches, they want to live out their dreams and whatnot, but I don't I don't I don't really like it. I thought, he would be at Florida State for a while, and now Florida State, they had to go out and hire a head coach for the first time in about 45, 50 years because Bobby Bowden was there for how long before Jimbo? They brought in Jimbo, named him as his replacement, and in a couple years, he'd be the next head coach. That ended up happening. He was at Florida State for 8 years, and now he, has left to go to College Station and be the next head football coach at Texas A&M. Money talks, as I said, 10 years, $75 million deal. I don't really like it, but it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I see this move as what Brett Bielema did at Wisconsin, and then he left to go to Arkansas, a Big Ten school going to the SEC. A lot of coaches think the SEC is the best conference in college football. To a lot of people, it is, and I mean, to me, it's either one or two, depending on the year. It's either the Big Ten or the SEC. The ACC's, been getting up there. They're probably three, just because Clemson has won 3 straight ACC titles now, going to the college football playoff for the 3rd straight year, looking to play in their 3rd straight national championship game. So I see it as a Brett Bielema move from Wisconsin to Arkansas, as what Jimbo Fisher, is doing now from Florida State to Texas A&M, and we all saw it happen with Bielema. He just got fired by Arkansas, and they're still looking for their next head coach. So, we'll see what happens. But I don't understand why Jimbo left. I really don't. The next guy I wanted to talk about then was Herm Edwards. He was the head coach in the NFL for the Jets and Chiefs, and then has not coached for 9 years. It'll be officially 10 years whenever he starts the 2018 season as the head coach for Arizona State. They will be keeping the same staff that they have, but I like what he said in his press conference yesterday on Monday, as today's Tuesday, December 5th. He was asked about, the current coaching staff, and the news was out that he was, they're going to keep, who they had, and just bring in Herm to replace Todd Graham. And, would they fit his system? Well, he had said they're football coaches, and I just really like that answer for some reason. As a lot of guys, they'll replace, the staff the previous head coach had, but he's going to be keeping them. He is 63 years old. He hasn't coached in 9 years. We'll see. But I also liked another thing he said. He hasn't forgot about, how to coach. And that's what he said. ESPN has allowed him to do that. And that's why it was a hard move to leave ESPN after 9 years to go to Arizona State, a program that has been down in the dumps for I don't know how long, a while. But Herm Edwards is now the next head coach, and I wish him nothing but the best at Arizona State. Hopefully he'll do well and get that program back on track, and then maybe in a couple years he officially retires, goes back to ESPN, and they bring in somebody who can keep that program going. But we'll see. As I said, Herm Edwards, Arizona State. Josh Heupel, I already talked about a little bit. Formerly now the offense coordinator in Missouri, played at Oklahoma and coached at Oklahoma. Was the runner-up in 2000 for the Heisman Trophy, which I'll get to this year's finalists here in a minute. So Scott Frost, Central Florida's losing Scott Frost to Nebraska. but they bring in Hupel now, who really is another great offensive-minded coach, and hopefully Central Florida can, you know, stay in the right direction and win some American Athletic Conference championships, here in the future. That program was good when George O'Leary was there, and then in his last year they went 0-12, and then now they became the first college football program ever in history in a 2-year span to go from a winless to undefeated, as they finished 0-12 in 2015 and now are 12-0, should be 13-0, but they didn't play one game due to the hurricane. But now they're undefeated 2 years after going winless, so that's pretty impressive. Hopefully Hupel can keep that program on track, and as I said, Central Florida can be a force to be reckoned with down in the state of Florida, as they were this year, with Florida being down, Florida State being down, and then really the best team in the state of Florida, as Miami ended up losing their last 2 games to Pitt and Clemson. And then, South Florida was good, but Central Florida beat them. Florida Atlantic was good. I don't believe those 2 teams played. But now Central Florida is the last undefeated team in college football. And they'll try to be the only undefeated team in college football this season when they play Auburn in the Peach Bowl on January 1st. So, as I said, I'll preview the bowl games next week. Next guy and last guy I want to talk about for coaching is Willie Taggart, former Western Kentucky, South Florida, and Oregon coach, leaving Eugene only after 1 season up there to go back to the state of Florida to take the Florida State job to replace Jimbo Fisher, who left to go to Texas A&M. Great hire, I think, by Florida State. Get a replacement really quick. About 3 days, was in between losing their head coach and finding a new one. And Taggart is a great recruiter, and he knows the state of Florida unlike anybody else, as he had success at all three of his last stops at Western Kentucky, which led to him getting the South Florida job, and he did well there for the years that he was in Tampa, and then going 7-5 this year in Eugene. Somewhat of a down year for the Ducks, but he was trying to get that program back on track. But now he's going to Florida State, another prestigious program, and I wish him nothing but the best. So really now Tennessee and Arkansas and now Oregon are the only 3 schools that do not have a head coach, as both Tennessee and Arkansas fired theirs, and Taggart left Oregon. So hopefully all 3 of these schools can find their next head coach here soon. Arkansas, I think, was trying to go after Gus Malzahn, but Auburn locked him up for the future. Tennessee, it's just a mess right now. The whole thing with Greg Schiano, and then all these other coaches not wanting the job. They brought in Philip Fulmer now as the athletic director, former Tennessee coach. Do they go after Lane Kiffin again? I don't know. I don't think they should. I've said that before. I think they should go after Mike Norvell at Memphis and stay in state, as now as he just lost the American Athletic Conference game to Central Florida. But you saw all the points they put up this year, especially in that game, and taking one of the best teams in college football to double overtime. So I think Tennessee should go after Mike Norvell still. Arkansas, I think, should go after Brian Harsin still, for current Boise State head coach. And then Oregon, a name to keep an eye out for, I think, might be Kevin Sumlin, just because he had success at A&M, but he was playing in the SEC, in the SEC West. You got to play Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas every year, LSU, and I think it'd just be good for him to get a fresh start somewhere else. Don't take a year off. Arizona State wanted him. They ended up hiring Herm Edwards. Central Florida wanted him. They ended up hiring Josh Heupel. Oregon's now open. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to get players to their max and have them play in his system. So I think Kevin Sumlin would be a good fit for Oregon. Whether or not they'll pay up, I think they probably will, because they have in the past. Just due to the fact Oregon is basically Nike because of Phil Knight. But I think it'd be good for Sumlin to get a fresh start in a new conference. Arizona State wanted him Pac-12 school, Oregon Pac-12 school, so maybe Oregon goes after him as well. So Kevin Sumlin, I think, would be good at Oregon. So that's probably going to be it for coaching updates here and across the goal line. We'll see though. As I said, because we still got three more openings. Maybe I'll do an overall recap on what I think was a good hire or bad hire here at the end of the college football season, but we'll see. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about before I announced the 4 teams that are in the college football playoff was my Heisman predictions for this year. The 3 finalists for this year are Lamar Jackson, going back to New York for the second straight year, trying to become the second college football player in history to win back-to-back Heisman trophies. We'll see if he can do that on Saturday. Bryce Love from Stanford is another guy to keep an eye out for, who could possibly dethrone Jackson. But the favorite and my pick to win the Heisman Trophy this year, 2017, is quarterback Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. Has had one hell of a year for the Sooners this year. He led them to their 3rd straight Big 12 title, 2nd appearance in the college football playoff, and he also set an FBS record for passing efficiency, which broke his own record from last season, 2016. Completed 71% of his passes, threw for close to 4,500 yards, and was 2nd in the nation with 41 touchdown passes, alongside all his rushing touchdowns that he had as well. He's also a finalist for the Davey O'Brien Award, the top quarterback in the country, which he'll probably win, because I can't think of any other great quarterbacks from start to finish this year to win the Davey O'Brien Award. And he could potentially win the Maxwell Award too, given to the top player in college football, which basically is also the Heisman, because the Heisman's the best player in college football during the season. So Love really came on this season after replacing Christian McCaffrey. Bryce Love, 2nd in the nation in rushing yards, 1973, close to 2,000. Would have been nice if he could get over 2,000. Stanford, they'll be playing in a bowl game. He'll get to 2,000 more than likely in the bowl game, but regular season, and that's what I look at. Bowl games shouldn't really count for total yards and touchdowns, but it is what it is. He did score 17 touchdowns on the year, and in recent weeks he's had a sprained ankle, and he really hasn't played as well, but he still kept it going, and he still played good enough to keep his name in the Heisman race. And then Lamar Jackson, as I said, he's trying to become the first Heisman winner to win the Heisman Trophy in back-to-back years since Archie Griffin in 1974 and 75. Threw for 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, and then he ran for 1,500 yards and 17 more touchdowns on the ground. So I think Baker's going to come away with it on Saturday night. Will his off the field issues and some on the field issues, the way his personality, the way he acts, will it come back to bite him in the ass? Maybe. There's probably going to be some guys that don't vote for him because of that. I think there should have been another guy as a finalist. Would he have won? I don't think so, because the way he played late in the year and the way Penn State played late in the year, especially the Ohio State-Michigan State game, that's Saquon Barkley. He got snubbed as a Heisman finalist. He should have been at least a finalist. I probably still would have picked Baker because he's had a better year from start to finish, and Barkley had the stumble there, at the end of October, early November. But I don't know. That's why they play the games, and you got to watch, most of the games. And a lot of these guys that are voting, former Heisman winners, analysts for networks, what do they, look at when they're voting? Is it eye test? Do they just look at stats? I don't know, but if you would have watched Penn State, especially in the Ohio State-Michigan State game, the only thing Saquon did in the Ohio State game was return that kick to start the game. A Michigan State game, he didn't really do anything. And Baker, yeah, he had his problems, I guess you could say, according to a lot of people throughout the year. And is it gonna cost him the Heisman? I don't think so. We've seen it in years past, especially with Johnny Manziel, all the shit he did at Texas A&M, and that's really the only good year someone had at A&M. I'll go back to that, and which basically led to his firing because he couldn't replace Johnny Manziel, and Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel. And we all have seen what he's doing now. He's not even playing in the NFL. But Baker, he does remind me of Manziel, and Manziel won the Heisman. So, and even with all his shit that went on, he still won. So, Baker Mayfield's my Heisman Trophy winner when it comes down to it. And hopefully Baker doesn't go the same way Manziel did and get into trouble once he got in the NFL. But we'll see. Baker, he does remind me of Drew Brees a little bit as well. All three of those quarterbacks are about 6 foot. Russell Wilson can be thrown in there as a comparison, just because, as I said, both guys are all four of those guys are, if not the shortest quarterbacks in NFL history. They're still damn good players, but Baker, hopefully he succeeds at the next level, but we'll see. It just depends on what team he gets drafted by. Maybe the Saints do take him, because I think he'd be good in a Sean Payton offense. As that comparisons to Drew Brees, I think they do draw really, really close. But Baker's got to get through this season first. Potentially could win the Heisman on Saturday, and then the college football playoff will be getting on New Year's Day. As I said, the college football playoff rankings were released for the final time this year, this past Sunday, on ESPN. The final 4 teams are: number 1 is Clemson, won the ACC for the 3rd straight year. Oklahoma's 2, winning the Big 12 for the 3rd straight year as well, and having a Heisman finalist in Baker Mayfield. Clemson will be playing in the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma will be going out west to Pasadena and playing the Rose Bowl. And then Georgia came in at 3 after they defeated Auburn in the SEC championship game. And then the debate with who should be 4, who would be 4, came down between Alabama and Ohio State. Alabama, who was ranked 5th, didn't play last week, didn't play for the SEC title, didn't even win their own division. And Ohio State, who won the Big Ten, won the East, won the Big Ten, and very similar to last year. And Ohio State, it came back and bit them in the ass, because last year they lost to Penn State. Penn State went on and won the Big Ten East, won the Big Ten, and got snubbed by the College Football Playoff Committee. This year, Ohio State beat Penn State. Ohio State went on and won the Big Ten East, won the Big Ten. Both teams defeated Wisconsin too, by the way. What is that saying? The Big Ten doesn't have anybody good in the Big Ten West. I don't know. Still a good win. Wisconsin at the time for both were ranked in the top. Both times were ranked in the top 10. But now, for the second straight year, the College Football Playoff Committee has taken a team that hasn't even won their respective division or conference, for that matter, over a team who has won their division and conference, as Alabama got the number 4 spot over Ohio State. And to me, that's saying you might as well, not even, the games don't even matter if you play them or not. You might as well pick teams out of a damn hat. And, it is what it is. I mean, I was mad. It's for the second straight year. It's saying you don't need to win your conference to be in the college football playoff. And like I said, I was mad. I thought Ohio State should have got in. Maybe a little biased because they're in the Big Ten, but they want the 4 best teams. I don't think Alabama from start to finish was a good team. Their strength of schedule wasn't as good as Ohio State's. It is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and really argue about it right now. I am debating, and I probably will make a video, so keep an eye out for it, because I do think the college football playoff should expand to either 6, 8, 10, potentially 12 teams, maybe even 16. And I know that add on to the end of the year, but maybe if you start the season before it starts at the end of August, early September, and compete with NFL preseason, which they would blow them out of the water, they'd still be able to finish at the same time. And the thing is, these players are on campus all year long, so they'll they just be starting practice, starting fall camp in middle of June, early July maybe, and then having the season start a month earlier. But we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not, but I do think college football playoff should expand. So keep an eye out for that if I do make one. And then hopefully you enjoyed this video. So college football playoff: Clemson 1, Oklahoma 2, Georgia 3, Alabama 4. Clemson and Alabama are playing for the 3rd straight year in the playoff. This year, though, is a semifinal game, unlike the last 2 years. They play the national championship game. That game will be played in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl. And in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, we'll see Oklahoma play Georgia. Both games New Year's Day on ESPN, as I said at the start of the show. So both games should be good. Hopefully they'll be good. I don't want to see any blowouts, because if there was a blowout, say Alabama gets blown out by Clemson, as Clemson blew out Miami, there's going to be a lot of talk. The College Football Playoff Committee should have put Ohio State in there over Alabama. But then you go back the year before, Clemson blew out and shut out Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl 31-0. So, it is what it is. Like I said, sometimes got to give, every now and then. But like I said, hopefully you like this video. Be sure to keep an eye out for a college football playoff expansion video if I decide to make that. And then as well, the NFL will be playing more games as their regular season is dwindling down, as the playoff picture is dwindling down as well. We know most of the teams that are going to be getting in the playoffs, so I'll talk about a little bit about that as well. So keep an eye out for all those, and like I said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see everybody next week.